I don't know which one that is. That looks like it's my camera.
So,
yeah. It's this camera. Hi, everyone.
Maybe this needs to be plugged into here. But I don't think I can because that doesn't reach you.
We got a new camera and we're trying to figure out how to use it. Okay. What do we need to do, Sean?
I think this is into here, but you're using it this actually.
Yes.
So I don't think that'll.
What's the cord on that?
Where's that dongle?
The dongle?
Let's see what is it only the dongle?
I don't know what my dongle would be.
Okay, I'm not sure what dongle. With an HDMI.
Okay, just kidding, you guys. We are not hooked up to my new camera. All right. Okay, so I'll bring this over here. Welcome. My desk is such a mess. So much has been going on. Clean my lens real quick. And can you guys hear me? If you can hear me, give me a little comment, like a chat or something on the bottom. Yeah. On this side of my lip, it just looks like I have so much more lipstick on it. Okay. Welcome. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment. I know, so many things, but it would really help me out a lot. It would help me with like the algorithms and everything like that. So we have lots to talk about, and I don't really have like a topic, like a life lesson this week. I can just kind of talk about what I did, I think is what I'm going to do. Oh, I need to go live on Instagram. Let me add that onto my feed. Live. Here we go. Okay. Kind of behind in the very back. Oh, Sean, can I get some water? Hi, Lee. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you so much. Okay, let me go live and then we can continue. And Lee is watching while she's at work. We won't tell your boss. I mean, you're multitasking, right? Oh, look at that. I have like a little white spot. What is that? Ugh. Okay. All right. So now we're live on Instagram. Hi, Chris. My friend Chris is tuning in on Instagram. And okay, so we got a new camera, but I don't know how to connect. So we'll work on that over the weekend. We need some other cords that we didn't know we needed. So we're still back on my regular webcam, and I'm using my phone to go live on Instagram. And hopefully, eventually we'll get the flow together where I can stream everywhere at the same time. I'm actually getting a lot more traffic on Instagram. So we're getting about, I get only a few on YouTube. But I think my last one is almost 500 views on Instagram. It says here that I have poor connection, so hopefully you guys can hear me over there. Thank you guys for joining in. All right. Let's begin. It's 12:07. So I hope you guys are well, by the way. I'm sorry, Sean? 207. Oh, sorry, 207. What did I say? 12. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, and let me charge my phone here because we are. Yes. Okay. So, all right, you guys, to be honest with you, been so sad the past day and a half. And it's because of the Alec Murdaugh case. But actually, let me just go over the boring stuff. Not boring, but since I'm your real bestie, REA stands for real estate and law. How's the real estate market doing? Well, we're at 7.1%, which is pretty high because 4 weeks ago when I was reporting to you guys and giving you guys my first live update, we were at 6.09, so 6.1. So we're actually like 1% higher. What does this mean? You would think that it meant that it would slow down the real estate market. We are about, I think it was, I was listening to Stephen Thomas, and he does like real reports on housing. He was giving an update. We were in January, like 9,000 houses below what usually gets listed. But also in February, I think it was like 5 or 6,000 below what normally gets listed during this time. So it's because people love their interest rate and they're not putting their house on sale, because if they were to purchase something else, they're paying 7%. But what does that really mean for buyers who are out there shopping? It really means that because there's limited inventory, um, people are not overbidding. Yeah, isn't that crazy? And they're overbidding again by like 100,000 minimum. So, and those are for the really beautiful homes, the ones that have been renovated that have been done very well. I am seeing homes that are renovated, but it's like a quick fix. And so when it's done like that, we're not really seeing a lot of buyers go in and put an offer on the homes. But the ones that are done really well are, I'm getting multiple offers. And so I feel bad for buyers who are not only now at 7.1% on the interest rate, but then also they are having to pay a little bit more, maybe out of pocket. So I did have a situation this week where I needed to do, I had a listing and the appraisal came back short, meaning it didn't go for the list price, which was the offer price. Um, and so I wrote a 6-page appraisal rebuttal, uh, single space, and at times it was like 8 font because I was listing so many things that I needed to shorten it. So I kind of like made the font a lot smaller so it could kind of all fit in a page or page and a half. That was on the updates. Um, but if you know me, that's just what I do, which a lot of times when these appraisals come short, the listing agent just, or even the buyer's agent just says, "Okay, that's what it is. We'll just leave it and you guys decide what to do, buyers and sellers," and they kind of step out. But, for me, I don't really give up. So with that said, I ended up, and it's funny because my escrow officer wrote to me and she's like, "Katie, can you give me an update? I heard that it was short." It was short by 20,000. And thank you, Lee, for your kind comment. She says, love it that you do so much for your clients. I'm all in, right? And that's actually the name of our real estate company, is All In Realty. But yeah, so I ended up dissecting the report. So it took me about 3 days to do this rebuttal. And I ended up the first day I dissected, it was like a 31-page appraisal. And I just kind of, just a tip from me to you, whether you're representing a client or you're actually buying or selling your property, would be to look at each line item. So a lot of things that I was looking at was like the bedroom count numbers. So even though in the photos for the comps that they gave, it looked as though that like it was a 2 bedroom, but as I was looking through the photos, I was like, I don't think that's a 2 bedroom. Let me pull title. So I reached out to my friends who pulled the title for me, and it said on there that it was actually a 1 bedroom, and they were trying to sell it for a 2 bedroom. And when I started looking into it, it looked as though it was a storage room that they tried to turn into bedroom. It looked as though it was exterior part of the house. It was an add-on. So obviously it wasn't permitted, because if it was, it would have kind of pulled on title. So just a lot of things. So two of the homes had only 1 bedroom, and we are it was a cabin I had. It was a 2 bedroom, 1 bath. And so I rebutted that and said, "Hey, you know what? You didn't give my client the credit for the extra bedroom. Also, just for the updates, they didn't really give credit for. They just said, they didn't know when it was done, but they could have asked me, but I've also presented notes to confirm. They should have asked me to confirm when was the dates of the updates, because if it was done more recently, then you get more credit than if it was done like instead of within a year, then 1 to 5 years. So I'm not an appraisal expert, but this is kind of like what I've heard through either appraisal rebuttal classes I've taken, or through friends who are appraisal experts, and that's just what they do for a living. And so I was able to go beyond just 1 mile radius, which is usually what we're limited to. Um, I actually went outside of that radius to 2 to 3 miles. And the reason for that is I found homes that were 3 bed, 2 bath within this similar square footage, but they had this similar updates, if not almost exact. And we were talking about the same tile, the same backsplash, same, showers and glass sliding doors, like the modern ones that look like farmhouse. And that gave us a more of an exact comp than arbitrarily giving a number saying, okay, we think it's the, increase in value is, let's say, 17,500. And it should be actually be more, because my client ended up, if we calculated everything from appliances to cost of improvement, it was like $131,500. So it's like, it wasn't fair that they were only getting 17,500 for all the work that they did. So I was able to pull all these comps. So I submitted three. Um, and hopefully it works out. I'll let you guys know how it goes. But it's funny, my escrow officer, she's like, can you give me an update? And I was like, I'm going to be writing a rebuttal. And she's like, I knew you would. And I'm like, not like I'm a contentious kind of person. Yeah, I mean, I am an attorney, but I like to write. And really, if you take time, there was so many other things that my client, the subject property, didn't get extra value for a larger square footage, whether it was the lot or the house itself, but they were getting deductions when another comp showed that it was larger in square footage, So it was one of those things, like line item by line item I had to go through. And it took me a really long time. I think it took me 3 days. So first day was actual going over the report, dissecting it. I was highlighting and circling. The second day, I kind of worked on more of detailing on the improvements. And then after that, I worked on actually assembling my arguments together. So Lena says hello, and then she also says that's dedication. Yes, super dedication. Lena, is that a new photo? I love it. It's so nice. I see Jessica. I see Jenny. Thank you, everyone. Linda, Johnny. Thank you, everyone, for joining. So that's just my update on real estate. I think that it's still moving forward, even though I know we're in this like weird time where people aren't very confident in our economy, because we're not sure, like, hey, are we going to be in a recession? If we buy now, are we going to be regretting it later if the market drops? And so we'll see. So that's my update on real estate. And then really quick, just like on my law side. And so what I've noticed is, like, I watch people, I listen to podcasts, I watch YouTube, and I watch a lot of times when I'm bored, whether I'm cooking or I'm just hanging out. Like last night, I fell asleep super early. I was supposed to call my client around 8 or 9 on some paperwork that we needed to submit. And I fell asleep like around, I think, 7:30. I was just so tired. This week has been absolutely insane. I'll kind of talk to you guys what I've been up to. But then yesterday, when I like woke up at midnight, um Lena says, "What? I'm on YouTube 24/7, laughing out loud. It's my TV." I know. So I watch it all the time. Sean, can I get water, please? Sorry. So I watch her listen all the time. And last night I was like, oh, what do I do? Like, I'm up, I was gonna like do my nails. I didn't do my nails. I ended up polishing it a little bit, just to prep it for when I polish. And then I was just kind of like listening to a lot of things. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna tell you guys what I'm up to, because I mean, it's my channel, right? And I think I can kind of do anything, right? So what I've been up to this week, and I'll just tell you, like, one day I was actually gonna write it out to let you guys know kind of like what I've been up to. One day, which was, I finished that appraisal rebuttal, 6 pages. Thank you. I had a 25-page document that was for probate, and it was the final accounting. And so it had, although it just sounds like 25 pages, it was a lot. It took us probably about 2 weeks to get everything prepped for the file. to submit for approval. So basically, I do, in case you guys don't know what I do probate and trust, estate planning, which includes trust and wills. I also do corporate law, which is like business law. I also do personal injury, and I do anything involving real estate. So real estate litigation, and just kind of, I deal with sometimes I deal with HOA, sometimes I deal with landlords. I usually represent landlords. And that's just because, I mean, to be honest, they can afford it, but also there's more legalese on their side that they had to prove. So I represent them. I was heading in the direction of doing like a lot of civil litigation. I just realized like that just wasn't for me because it was a time suck and I wouldn't have time for my kids. And it was super litigious. It required a lot of time and it was like kind of like a headache sometimes. Especially dealing with a lot of other attorneys. I'm like a chill attorney and I don't really get super aggressive, although my nickname is the Barracuda Bayliss. But yeah, so I kind of stepped down on that. I may take on things on like pre-litigation, so before we actually go to trial. But after that, I don't know where I'm at right now. But with the kids, my family, and just all the work that I'm already doing, I don't know if I could take, civil litigation on, um, full force again. I'm trying to make it where, I feel like in life and with God, trusting in God, it's kind of one of those things where, um, it's enough. And if you come from a place of scarcity, it's going to not be enough. But I'm really trusting in God that, you know, he has his plans. And I feel like a lot of times when I've rested, like gone on vacation, or really have just not have like gone out there and like pound the pavement for the next client, I feel like he's rewarded us. So at this point, I think I'm just stepping back from actual true civil litigation, but still working on things here and there what involves like real estate. And sometimes those involve a little bit of litigation. Um, so we'll see where it goes. But anyway, so this week I did the appraisal rebuttal. That was 6 pages to 25 for probate, which is when we were closing out a probate case. And then I wish I could go into the details with you guys, but it's super private and I can't share. But I would just suggest, you never know what'll happen. Especially like with during COVID, our business just skyrocketed because so many people weren't prepared for nobody was prepared for what was going on. And we had, parents passing away or spouses passing away, and they didn't have the estate plan. And so, there was no trust to um pass on someone's, real property. And so we had to open a lot of cases, and it was just a sad season. And when we're our name for what we do, I'm an attorney, but I'm also a counselor at law, and it totally makes sense because a lot of times I'm counseling people through this season, which I thought I was going to be a psychologist anyways, but I didn't pursue that. So it kind of works hand in hand. I actually finished an estate plan. I'm going to show it to you. Sean, can you grab my folder? Just to show you how thick, because some people are like, oh, I just want an estate, I just want a trust. And I tell people like, we can build you a trust, but that wouldn't be very thought out and well planned, because you really need all the other powers. So, oh yeah. So I just want to show you, like, if you do an estate plan with us, this is what you get. Look how thick it is. And people are like, oh my God, you dropped that. And this little thick section right here that you see is your trust. And then everything else is like your pour-over will, I think that you can see the titles on here. Your nominations, which is like if you have, you need guardianship for your children. And then we have like the power of attorney, healthcare directive, and your HIPAA release, all those things. We'll talk about it another day. But I drafted that, and it was like over 200 pages for my clients. And that was like, whew. I mean, luckily I have Sean who kind of puts everything together. So I was like drafting, printing, and then he was double checking everything. I still double check just to make sure the writing is good and there's no errors. But we go through that file, like we just keep working on it. And so we worked on it for about a week, turned that over on Wednesday. And then a bunch of other things that, I'm working on so many things, and so blessed. I also do like a lot of business law. So whether people are expanding their business, partnerships, franchising, I do trademark. I've been doing, I had someone call me yesterday for patent law. So it's just like, it's so crazy. All the areas that I've been so blessed to work in. So on to why I've been sad the past day and a half. It's because of the verdict of the Alec Murdaugh case. It's super controversial, and I see online there's like a lot of people who just say like all these like bad and nasty things. Um, and it's just so sad because they say attorneys are protectors of the law, and I really take what I do personally. I'm about excellence and about being truthful and honest, in especially like when you go to court and stuff. Um, and I think if a lot of people don't understand, it's like okay, so we call everyone else who's not an attorney like lay people, right? So just you know, civil people that don't have the expertise in law, and it's hard for us to see the bashing that happens, for everyone who said that Alec Murdaugh was guilty without really looking at how the law works and without understanding it. And I don't really know how to explain it. Sometimes I think about it and I say, well, it's like um, it's like being sick and then Googling everything and trying to self-diagnose and thinking that everything that you see online is like, that's the Bible and that's correct and this is how it's supposed to be. But I'm sure there's a percentage of you who've like incorrectly diagnosed yourself. So then you're like, oh, I thought I had that, but I really had this based on, because they just give you like a general list of what some of the symptoms are, and then you automatically identify and you say like, this is why I'm sick and this is what I have, but really it wasn't. And so I feel like that's the same with law, where we really understand it, we understand the application of it as attorneys, um, and then to see the general public to kind of say he's guilty just because he's a bad person. There's like an actual law about introducing past criminal history, um, or past bad acts, because once that comes through, you kind of can't get it out of your mind that the person is a good person. So with the Alec Murdaugh case, were we surprised that he ended up being found guilty yesterday and then he was sentenced today? Um, in a sense, I really felt like I believe in our system. I believe that the jurors would do the right thing, um, and really try to apply the law and not their feelings toward him. Um, at the same time, I'm not surprised because once they allowed all the bad acts, 15 years of his prior history into the courtroom, it would be hard for you to remove those thoughts about him to show, to actually apply the law. So originally, the prosecution, the Attorney General AG, told the judge that they wanted to bring in all these bad acts because um, it would show motive. And the defense said, okay, you can bring in one which is related to the case, which is the killing of Alex's wife and son occurred. Do you remember Sean, June
So,
7th of 2019? And there was going to be a hearing for within a few days. I believe it was like
2021, wasn't it?
what
Wasn't it 2021?
was it?
Case is that old, is it?
I don't know. I thought it was older. Can you Google? Sean's gonna Google. There was a case that was good. There was going to be a hearing regarding a case that he was involved in, which was the
That one
boat
happened in
case.
2018.
Huh?
I think that happened in 2019.
Sean's gonna take a look. But basically, there was gonna be a hearing, and then the prosecution side is saying, like, oh, on that day, he like everything was gonna fall apart. But I think it was a motion to compel. And if for a motion to compel, it's just basically you're telling the judge, hey, judge, we need a hearing on this because I'm trying to get documents from them, or them to turn over stuff to me, and they're not like cooperating.
2021 was the day of the murder.
Oh, the day of the murder. But when was that hearing?
2019 was.
Oh, go ahead. So Sean is saying June 7th, 2021 was
the day they were murdered.
The day the people were murdered.
I think.
And then the hearing that happened, motion to compel, was going to be a few days later. So they're saying like he did this because everything was going to fall apart and there was going to be a conclusive ending on, that hearing. But that hearing, if you really pay attention, it's just a motion to compel. So it's like really nothing. I mean, you're just going to the court and the judge is saying, okay, if that is a valid reason for why you want to see those documents, then you'll tell the other party, the defense, turn it over. It's not a big deal. So and I'm sad because we are on the behind the scenes, we really understand the law, and I know, people are going to write things and just be really upset at me for saying like, hey, they didn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he did it. In a general case, even if it's circumstantial evidence, that it would be like, they found, her, like on a murder case, let's say some person, let's say a male kills a child, right? And let's just say it's a female, a girl. They would say it would be a slam dunk that this person did it, right? Like that defendant did it. It would be like, okay, they found that hair of the little girl, like in his, whatever, his car, or they found her blood in like her DNA, they tested it in his car, or they found it, DNA on his shirt. His DNA was under her nails. And then, they found how he tied her up and bounded her. They found that sticker or tape somewhere down the street or within the vicinity of his home. And they would be able to find there was him stalking her on the internet, or there was facts of, there's just so many detail. And then they'll say like, and the bag that he used to put her body in, he zipped it up. They had her DNA all over it. I'm sorry?
His DNA.
Or her DNA in his bag. I mean, it's just like facts after facts after facts. And then you're like, boom, without a doubt, he did it, And so in this situation, I just feel like they try to promote motive. And I was just listening to the defense talk about today after the sentencing. They were talking about how even in closing, the prosecution said, hey, you don't need to prove motive. We need to prove malice. And it's like, well, then why did you introduce all those evidence of his bad past acts? Because I've said this before, it's more probative. It was more prejudicial by introducing all those bad acts than it was probative, meaning to show that he really did these acts. There was I can just go on and on and on, which is one of the things that, like, for example, Sledge should have tightened up the scene when they found the body. They should have protected the footprints, any tire marks. They really, instead they had, the officers and people coming to support Alec, walking over, trailing over all of these, the scene of the crime. And then, even if you're following the Brian Kohlberger case, like they've pretty much are still protecting that house. It has a wire fence around it. Recently they put up like the wood to protect the windows. It's like they're protecting the scene. And so I just feel like, even with Alec Murdaugh testifying, because they said that a lot of people said he shouldn't have, I ended up, when I watched it and I tried to be like, when I'm watching these cases and I'm observing them, I'm not I don't come in with a feeling, I'm innocent till proven guilty is in my mind. So I'm watching to see what I believe. And what I do believe is after hearing everything, it really wouldn't be possible for him to be guilty because how could they say for certain when did the time between the incident occurring, which supposedly just a few minutes, between 2 to 6 minutes around that, for him to have commit the crime and then have showered, gotten rid of everything, and then left to his mom's house. It just didn't make sense. For me, I'm looking at it as in the community was upset that his son had killed somebody in a boat accident. The son had gotten a lot of threats from those in the community who, because he killed somebody, and they were saying that $900,000 wasn't enough money in the insurance to cover the death of the person, which I can understand. So all these people were really, really upset. So I think there was an outside motive to come and kill the son, and then maybe the mom was there, and so the mom um, happened to get shot too. So I feel like that was, and Lena says maybe there was outside motive. I really feel like that was the situation. And then Alec just, they were watching him. So when he actually left to go see his mom, um, that they did their job, and now it's too late to go back to see if they can find out who did it. And by the way, it's not Alex's job to find out who committed the crime. That's the job of the police. And so a lot of people are putting that on the burden on him to do it. But it's like he's behind jail. He doesn't have any rights to subpoena any documents. He can't direct anything and say X, Y, and Z. You guys need to do this. He is a defendant. And I know there a lot of people say, well, he lied about whether or not he was at the kennels during the time before they were murdered, and he said no. Honestly, to be honest, excuse me, I think that uh, I can understand why he did it because they always say those who find the victims and the family members are always the first ones to get to be in the circle, like they're keeping an eye on you. So I'm sure he was scared and he happened to lie, and so and it's understandable, it's reasonable, so you can't hold that against him, which they held it against him, and then the prosecution said, well, why didn't you tell us the truth then after? But there is a federal law that says your right to remain silent doesn't mean that you're lying during that time. He didn't have to go on the stand, and when he did, that's when he revealed that yes, he was there, and he just didn't want to admit it. So then you know, the prosecution said to him, well, then you were lying. You were lying this whole time. Why didn't you tell anybody? And it's like he tried to have a meeting with them. He tried to sit down to tell them everything, but they didn't respond to his requests. And then to hold it against him, in addition to his right to remain silent, it was just a huge mess. So I know a lot of people may be upset with what I'm saying. I'm just saying it from a perspective of an attorney who really understands the law. I think that the appeal, he should appeal. Too much information was let in when they did the when they had the grand jury listen to the grand jury is like prior to actually being able to charge someone with a crime. You have to present your case, and the Sledge main chief investigator was making all these claims like, oh, there was the victim's DNA all over his clothes. The shirt was full of blood. Ends up being the shirt didn't have any blood. And if it did, it wasn't the typical blood that is human blood. And, and then he also lied about like the bullets, saying the bullets came from the 4 guns that was on the site. But then when they actually did the analysis, it was like there was no way to relate the type of bullets to the guns that were just on the property. I mean, there was just so many things about it. So I don't know if you guys follow the case, you might really understand what I'm talking about. I know to a lot of people, I've been talking to a lot of my friends, and people are like, what are you talking about? I haven't really followed. So I know it must be hard. But basically, not only my heart, Sean wasn't with me, but he was taking the kids taking Shane to his ortho appointment, and then running some errands. And it's like when I called Sean and tell him like what happened, He was pretty sad too. It's just that, if this can happen to him, imagine if you were innocent and you were pressed charges and people say, "Oh, just because you did these, like you stole money from somebody, um, you have the ability to like kill your own wife and son." You know, I don't think it's like the same level, like, um, and so that's just where I stand. Um, yeah, and so, um, it just, like I was saying, we're the attorneys are protectors of our system. And if we don't do a good job of protecting it, there's people that, because the prosecution in the closing statement kind of skewing some of the facts, some of the evidence that was said. Not technically, I would say lying, but really stretching what was given. And that to me personally is really offensive, like that's not what was said, or that was not what it was meant. It was taken out of context, and so I'm just like, "Man," that's why sometimes when you watch, you keep up with the news, you'll hear like, "Oh, this person was in jail for 35 years, but it was truly proven to be innocent." And because it can happen. So, I'm interested in the appeal. The appeal is gonna be more likely based on, um that a lot of the evidence was introduced and it shouldn't have been. And then I think if they wanted to take it to Supreme Court, it's going to be based on the his right to remain silent and how that was violated when he took the stand, and they twisted that and held it against him. So we'll see. So again, was I surprised? Not necessarily. Did I have hope that it would turn out the other way? Yes. Um, and but if I was a juror and I looked at the burden of proof, even if it was circumstantial evidence, was there enough circumstantial evidence? No, there was not. Um, so I hope that helps you guys. Um, Kim Lee Vong says, because people so focus on the negative than the positive or the good things a person did. I could see that, yeah. But then again, like, I don't know where, I it's hard to kind of, explain or to see what you're saying, but yeah, I could see that, and that's the thing, it's like you're focusing all on the negative, right? The character it's total character assassination, but is that what we do in court? No. A lot of times, like, if you guys followed, the guy that said objection all the time, um Darrell Brooks' case, self-represented himself, right? We call it pro se. Um, they didn't say all the other bad things that he did. So Darrell Brooks was the guy who got in a fight with his girlfriend, baby mama, and he went in a rage and drove down. It was the Christmas parade in the city, the main town center. He drove down that, and they were having a Christmas parade. He drove down that street, main street, and just kind of like ran over people. It was terrible. And they weren't allowed to introduce his past history of him, running over his ex-wife's leg, beating her up. Because that is more prejudicial, right? I mean, it could show the propensity of a person, but we need to focus on what happened on this case. So thank you for that. Thank you for the input. And then Lena says, nice, great breakdown. You can also say the reverse. What do you mean, Lena? Explain to me. But I'm definitely, glad that we're done with this case. I mean, it was going on for so long. I think it was like 6 weeks, 28 days, something like that. It was way too much, too long. So many late nights, because I am working in the daytime, and then, trying to catch up on the case at night. 1.5 times speed, 2 times speed. I can't do 2 times speed too much. It goes too fast and I can't retain all the information. Um, but it's like, oh, I'm ready for the next one. So we'll break that down when a next case. And you guys tell me if there's a case that you guys want me to cover. Just let me know. I'm glad to consider it. But I'm definitely ready and ramped up to watch the Brian Kohlberger case. I think that's going to be a good one. Um, but okay, Selena says, like, if he didn't have all those motives, he could have also killed them or not killed them. Yeah, that's true. Um, I think that that's definitely a possibility, right? Like, um, it was just so hard for me to wrap around the idea that I know that that does happen where, like, a spouse kills another spouse and there's people who take the lives of their kids. But if you just listen to the case, everyone, even from the prosecution side, everyone they brought on said how much of a great relationship both of them had. Like him and his wife did well they were, it wasn't perfect, but they got along really well. And he always wanted to be by her side and have her next to his side. And the same thing, like him and his son were best friends. They did everything together. So Lena says motives don't explain the whole story, especially supposed murder motive. Yeah, and that was the thing. It was all make believe. If you guys follow that case, where there was that girl, she went to, I think it was, I forget, but it was out of the country, and then her roommate got murdered. I wish Sean was here. He left me. Sean, do you remember the case of the girl who she was in another country and he left me for a bit. But yeah, it's when he gets here, I'll explain. But same thing with her. It was like they just made a story. There was that case of a girl who went out of the country and and they said that she murdered her roommate. What's her name? Do you remember that case? And that was the whole circumstantial, but it was also storytelling. It was the same thing I felt like with Alec Murdaugh. They created a story, made him look like a terrible person, and people believed that versus looking at the elements of the law and really applying the law. So, because beyond a reasonable doubt, I was like, if you're 50-50 and you're not sure, he's not guilty. If you're 65-50, still not guilty. 75-50, still not guilty. I mean, what's
Amanda Knox.
Amanda Knox. Do you remember that, Lisa's? I remember. I don't remember her name. Yeah, Amanda Knox case. Like that was the same thing. They made a whole story, and based on that story, she was convicted. But there was no evidence of anything that she did anything. So that's sad. So I just hope that you're not in a situation where this happens to you, because then it could be really, really really hard for you to prove your innocence. Lena says, is there a percentage like 50% evidence and 50% motives to indict? What is that? What do you think that means, Sean?
I don't think there is. I don't know how they do the charge.
I would say we usually look overall. I mean, there could be a motive, but it's usually we're looking at like substantial evidence. And motive can be a factor of the evidence. So it's not like motive and evidence. It's like it's a part of evidence. So then you have to look at everything as well. But there's different standards. Lena says, I would think a case that would have 75% evidence and 25% motive. Yeah. I could see what you're saying. So like I was saying, a motive could be part of evidence, and then it's additional evidence that would help you guide you to it. But you definitely need more evidence. I mean, for murder, for a criminal charge, you're looking at like true evidence. Like usually looking at, you might not have the person admit or that they did it, right? But then you're looking at like there's DNA, there's the weapon was found at the defendant's home or in the car within the vicinity. You could have the cell towers and the pings that they were within that area at that time. So there's all these other evidence that you can look at, and motive can be a part of one of those. But yeah, Alina says you can't have a motive. Yeah, to charge something for someone and have no evidence. Yeah. So that's where we're at. And even if they're lying, whatever, like, okay, that could be like a little bit leaning toward more of he's guilty, but then he also needs substantial evidence. And again, this is for criminal. So do you have any input on that, Sean? Okay, great. So then Sean is upset. You need to discuss. Tell me why. Can you come over here a little bit, Sean? Why can't you talk about it?
I don't know.
You should talk about it because, um, you've just been so sad. For all of you guys joining us, we're talking about the Alec Murdaugh case and how, Sean and I went to law school together. He doesn't practice law, and this is one of the reasons why. So I practice, he does in real estate, he does more, renovating, flipping, although we haven't done it in a couple of years. We kind of just slowed down just due to the amount of workload that we've had, especially with COVID. I mean, houses were going crazy, and selling for top dollar, so it wouldn't be a great investment, to buy a house at a high price, hold it, renovate it, hopefully that it'll sell. So can you maybe just give us a little bit of insight? I mean, we have just people here waiting and wanting to know.
What's the reason you said that you can have?
Can you come here? We're all gonna get we're gonna get mics. I mean, we just don't know how this stuff works. It's more complicated. Okay, Sean's perspective and why he's sad about the verdict, which again, we're not saying he's a great innocent person, and he's not a bad guy. We're not saying that. We're saying based
he could
on
have done it, but there's no evidence to say that he did it. It was all just made up stories. Their phones turned off at 8:49 p.m., so that means that's when they were killed. Like, where's the logic in that? Just because someone stopped using their phone, someone cleaned up and put the dogs away. So maybe that was them cleaning up, and then someone. You don't know when they came. You don't know who was there. We don't know anything. They claim that he drove away and threw the phone out the window, but they don't know that either because.
Well, and then SLED, which is their investigative department, like they failed on all of that because instead of putting the phone,
but maybe they didn't. Maybe they did it on purpose.
Yeah, so they could. Yeah, so they didn't put the phone into a bag that protects the phone from pinging, right? Because if it pings and then it's not like memory to a phone where it keeps every single ping, it only keeps it up for a certain period of time, which is like a few days. After that, it gets replaced. So at that time, they should have put the phone into the bag to protect it and seal it, and turn it off or turn it off. Instead, they just put it in airplane mode. And then by the time they actually tried to extract, they couldn't show that his car driving and her car were in the same spot, pinging at the same time. Sorry, her phone was pinging because it was gone. The information was gone. So it's just all an assumption that he took her phone and threw it off to the side of the road. But there's no evidence that both phones or his car, the
There's
GPS.
No evidence of when the phone got to the side of the road.
Yeah.
Other than an orientation change that they're assuming means that that's when it happened.
Oh my gosh, did you guys watch it where their cell phone expert?
Data extraction expert.
Okay. Someone says, so do y'all think he's innocent?
I just don't think there was.
I think that there was just not enough evidence to prove that he's guilty. Even if, so we're not saying he's 100% innocent, but he's innocent till proven guilty. And the thing about it, if you listen to the prosecution, not the prosecution, the defense, they were saying in America, even though you're not sure and you're not proven beyond a reasonable doubt, which is like a really high standard, because there's other standards for civil cases and, that they're unfortunately deemed innocent until you can meet that burden of proof. And he doesn't have a burden. He doesn't have to prove that
prove anything.
He
can't prove anything. The police are the ones that investigate everything and have all the information.
Yeah, I hope you guys can hear Sean because he's a little bit far away. Wait, Sean, can you say that one more time?
Said he can't prove anything because the police are the one that has all the evidence, or what they claim is evidence, like the hair that disappeared that was in Maggie's hand. They have all the clothes, they have any bloodshot, any angles measured, all that stuff was all done by the police. So how can someone else? All you can do is go off of what they did, which is what they tried to do.
Yeah, and then the other thing too, and I don't know if they purposely did that. Like, if you really think about it, they didn't preserve any of the crime scene. And then the next day, after the crime was, after they did their investigation, they put out. Morning. Yeah, is it the same morning? No, it was the next day. They put out like a thing like, the community.
They weren't there till like midnight. They investigated, and by morning they were gone.
Yeah, and by morning they were
So
gone,
like less than 8 hours later.
and they put out a notice, right? They said, "Oh, the community is safe. You don't have to worry about it." And it's like, well, how did they, if they barely did the investigation, you know? Usually crime scenes like that go for weeks. They take fingerprints everywhere. And that's the other thing. They didn't take fingerprints from the kennel, you know? So I think that I don't know if they purposely failed so that they can pinpoint it to be Alec, or maybe Sledge just didn't do sled sled didn't do their job, you know. So and we're just talking from a law perspective, what we have, what we know from like how, I don't practice criminal law, but I like to tell people, because I even got a phone call this weekend. Someone was like, well, I don't know if you'd be a good attorney for this case. It related to partnerships and similar to franchising and all that, which I do. So it's not like I don't do it. um, I asked her, I always say, and if you know me, I always say, go back to your old attorney. I don't like to take people's clients. I always like to give other attorneys benefit of the doubt. It's the same thing when I did makeup. I was like, no, if a trial, like a bride wanted to be a client of mine and she'd done like 5 trials, I'm like, no, you may want to go back to one of those because they're probably gonna do a better job than me, because most likely I'm probably not gonna be as good, just because maybe their level of like standard of what they expect. I wouldn't be able to if they already had 5 people. So I don't want to like, and I'm not about encouraging people to come my way. If you trust me, me, you're going to come to me. So this other client already had another attorney representing her for another similar situation, but different people involved. And I told her, I said, hey, maybe you want to go back to them, back to that person, because she already knows you. She already knows like how you work, and you already know how she works. Cause she was like, oh, and she said to me, well, maybe she doesn't do this type of work. And I said, well, you should definitely ask her, but I'm sure she does, because in law school, we studied like 23 subjects. And I think now it's like 30 subjects, but we in law school, we studied 23 subjects. We had to know everything. So all this like crime law that you're seeing, we've already been exposed to California and the federal evidence code. So we've been exposed to it. Oh, Sean, you got to go.
Yeah, it's really
and so we kind of have an overall understanding of all the theories and all the law. And yeah, we don't apply it, and I'm sure when you actually practice it, there's a lot of nuances, but we do learn the nuances too. Um, and so we do have a great understanding of different subject matters, although we don't practice in it, and sometimes a lot of us, we can't practice in everything because like I was telling you before when we first started, it's like, I'm doing all of these subjects already. I can't really take on another subject because like our office is already bombarded with like all this particular subjects. So our understanding of it and everything, and I think that I could provide great analysis is because I do have a deep understanding of how the law works. So I'm so thankful for, I'm going to say X Meme X is her name, for your input. And let's see, is there anything else I want to say? Okay, last thing, maybe because I said I didn't have a life lesson that I had to share this week, because usually I try to prep. But I can say that last week, I had my Valentine's party, and I did that because it's something that I've always wanted to do, is to create a sisterhood for women who are in my life. And I feel like I know great people individually, and I kind of wanted to bring my group together so you can all meet, and then end up they're making lots of friendships, which is super wonderful. Um, and I made a speech about sometimes when you write things down, it doesn't always work out. And I was encouraging people to never give up, because when you write down your wishes, like either whether, if you believe in God, I believe in God. I believe that He makes our wishes come true because He's a good, loving Father. And sometimes it doesn't work out. And it could be that He's saving us from more pain, or He loves us enough to detour us towards something else. And then if you're just a non-believer and you want to talk about the universe, you could say the universe has vibrations, and the vibrations will eventually work out to get you where you need to be. So my daughter, she also attended the event, and she said, "Mommy, when you said that things don't work out when you write it down, you forgot to say it doesn't work out um, because she said it's not meant to be." Right, and I'm like, "Oh my god, that's so smart, like, you're so brilliant." My daughter's 9, it's wisdom beyond her years, very sweet girl. She is, I always say, her feelings and her thoughts of things, she's has rose-colored lenses, and I've been taught that wording since she was a kindergartner because all the teachers like, she just sees the glass half full. It's like she just looks at the positive side of things, and actually her word for that evening, because I had everybody choose a purpose word for the year, and hers was, positivity. She said she wants to spread positivity, to those around her, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's so smart." But in addition to that, I was listening to a podcast, and Pamela Krim, she said that things, when you make a wish, like for me, sometimes like it's so bold, right? I'm making this prayer, like God, and it's like sometimes like, oh, I don't want to make this prayer because it's so bold. Like praying that someone's going to be healed. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like, is it going to come true? Am I making the right decision? But God put it in my heart. So then I would pray and be like, God, heal this person. I know she's really sick, like let's say with cancer, but I know that you're mighty and powerful and you can cure her, or give her good health. And then we say in Jesus' name we pray. And then we talk about the person and they die. And then you're like, oh my God, I made this wish, like this prayer. And like how and I was being bold and I was believing in you, and then it didn't work out. Um, so Alina saying, yeah. So I was listening to her and she was explaining that even though it doesn't work out, she said it's still working out. And I thought, wow, that's so true, because just because it's not coming true doesn't mean it's not coming true. It's gonna come true, whatever the purpose is, sometime later. And it might not be here on this earth, and it might be in heaven. Um, but I just thought like that was really powerful. I really needed to hear that because you know, Lena says Roman 12:8, God works out all things for those that love him. And yeah, and it's so true because you really got to trust in him and know that he's there for you and that he is a good, loving God. He's merciful. And so I just thought, like, wow, that was really amazing. This week we went, it was Wednesday night. I went to a friend of mine who had met through losing her son. She threw like a trisomy, my son passed away from trisomy 18. So she threw like a trisomy dinner, and it's March is the month of trisomy awareness. And it was really tough for me. Um, I've never had anxiety before this happened. Um, and it was, and I know my friend didn't mean to have it at this particular place to cause me to have anxiety. It's not, but I did. I had a lot of anxiety, and it was like because the room, it was like a bar, like a eatery, but it was like super dark where like Sean and I had to turn on our flashlight to like see the menu, read the menu. And it was so dark, like we couldn't hardly see anybody. And it was super loud. So people were talking, and it was a really small place. And then they had somebody like play the piano, and he was singing on the mic, and it was just like blaring in my ear. And I felt like the anxiety was coming on, and I felt like a full-on attack was coming on. And unfortunately, I told the girls, I'm like, I don't feel good right now. Like my anxiety is coming on. And I mean, one thing was great was like, they had anxiety too after it happened. I don't know why it triggered it. Well, I know why. So I had counseling, and it was because when I was in the hospital, a lot of times I was up, and I was in the hospital for 4 days to be with my son. And we could have left early, but I wanted to spend as much time with him as possible. And I felt like on the third day, it was okay to say goodbye because he was melting and he didn't look the same. And so it was really, really hard for me to see him like that because he was perfect and beautiful. And there's only so much that they can do. So like he started like oozing and stuff. So I just thought like, okay, after the third day, like fourth day was going to be good for us to say goodbye. But during those times when I was there, it was like I was in the hospital and everyone was sleeping around me, like whether it was Sean or Sean the kids. But I was up because I was devastated. Plus, I'm also a night owl, but I was up and I like was looking out, and looking out was completely black outside my window. I had like a window view, and it was like, but it was a window view of like weird like AC unit things. It wasn't like a beautiful view, but it was like pitch black all the time. And even in the daytime it was dark because um they had like tint on the window. So it was like dark often, but in the daytime it was like not super dark, but it was dark enough, um, and then I felt like it was the room that I had, like, I couldn't ever step outside. I couldn't even crack open for fresh air because they didn't want me to witness, what was going on the floor. So they moved me far away from all the other mothers who had babies, and, um, they wanted my door to be closed so I couldn't hear other babies crying on the same floor. Um, and so, like, I understand all this protection, but at the same time, it caused me to start having these attacks. Like, I felt like I wasn't in control of my situation. I couldn't step outside. I couldn't crack the door to be let in fresh air or even just to feel like, because, it was like claustrophobic for me, which I do have. I didn't know that I had it until like I was in high school when I had to do like a maze, and it was like a little maze with that covered us. It was like it was a built out maze, and it was, I don't know, but you have to crawl through it. And I started like I that's when I started like hyperventilating. And so the same thing here at the hospital. It's like a small room, and doors were shut, windows were closed, blinds were closed sometimes, and I couldn't move around. It was horrible. And so I had the experience when I was at that bar on Wednesday. And so I asked Sean to go and get me at least earplugs. So even though it was dark, asked him to turn on the lights, but that didn't improve anything. I don't even think that he did it. And I asked Sean if he can give me earplugs because I think I have it in my makeup bag in the car. Sean couldn't find it, and he was gone for a really long time. And food had come out, and it was just like, where, we're parked right outside. What's taking Sean so long? And I thought, oh my gosh, like, something must have happened to him. So after, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, I would say, maybe it was 15. It felt like longer than that. I walked outside to find him, and I started texting him, and he was so sweet. He told me that he went to like CVS, and he thought it was like on this corner, and he went there and it wasn't. Then he had to turn another way, and then um, the first time he went, it was just based on memory because he thought we drove by it, and then he's like he walked there, and then it wasn't there. So then he had to like, I guess, I don't know. I think he mapped it out, and then he wasn't. So he's like he was halfway there, so he's gonna drive anyway. So he ended up walking and buying me, earplugs, which I did use at dinner. And it was just really sweet of him. Love him so much for doing that for me. And then one of the guys, my friend's husband, he was like, "Oh my God, you're making us look bad." Because Sean walked to go get me a whole box of earplugs. But yeah, so I don't know. I walked away. I mean, I'm really grateful, but I can say that I was really sad. It was one of my first like Trisomy events I went to. Um, it's just sad because um they were talking about how they were able to bathe their child and change their diaper. They had like either a couple of days or umpteen days with their baby, and um my baby had already passed away, so I didn't get to do those things. And then it made me think like, because you're like, oh yeah, we would do one side of the diaper and who do the other side of the diaper. And then I'm like, well, I never did that. And then I didn't get to bathe my child because they're talking about how they had peace like holding their child when the baby passed, and like being in the moment and being there to help transition. And then I'm like, well, I didn't even know when my son passed away in my stomach. um by the time I realized that he had already gone to heaven. So it was like, and not comparing like out of bitterness. No, I'm not at all. And I'm so grateful for that they had that opportunity. I just was like, oh my God, I didn't realize like all the other things I was missing out on. Um, so that's why I was a little bit sad. And then I thought like, well, maybe I'm just not ready to share either. Um, you know? So I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it goes and what happens. Oh, Lena says some don't ever hold their baby. That's true. And I'm thankful that I did because it allowed me to have like peace and closure. Even my doctor was saying, like, "I want you to know that you need to see him." Because at first I was scared. I was like, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how he was gonna look like, if he was developed. Was I gonna be scared? And I knew that there was a high chance he had trisomy, but I wasn't sure on what kind of trisomy or what he really looked like, because it's one of those things that it affects the way that their appearance is. And sometimes people like trisomy babies, the one that our son had, which is trisomy 18, like they don't have a brain. And so it was like a big hole. I knew he had a brain though. But all those things that you read and online, I was just like, okay, I wasn't sure. Um, but I'm glad that I did, and I know that I'm lucky. So I'm not saying that I'm jealous or anything of the other ladies. I was just like, oh wow, it was an eye opener. Like I had a really different experience, and everybody has its own different experience. And Lena says, yeah, and it wasn't just all a dream. Yeah, and so it made it real. When I gave birth to Kara, my second child, I was really sick, and so when they operated, they took her away, and then I had to be woken up, um, and then I didn't see my baby for 5 days. I know, isn't that crazy? So I didn't see her for 5 days, and I definitely felt like there was a disconnect, um, and I felt like I wasn't a mom, like, it was really weird, and they had given me all these drugs, like, they said they gave me, like, half a pill of, um to not allow me to remember a lot of the things that was going on. And so but I do remember not being able to see her, and I'm like, where's my baby? Where's my baby? And she was in the NICU, I was in the ICU, and I couldn't see her until I got better. But one of my nurses told me, like, I could see that you're in so much pain that you can't see your daughter. So she took me secretly. I know this is terrible. She put me in a wheelchair. I think it was on the fifth day. She put me in a wheelchair and took me to see my daughter. And I couldn't even hold her, which was hard. Um, she was in the incubator because she was so small. And it was like on the sign, it says minimal touch. So I could only stick my hand through the incubator to touch her. But I had lost the connection with her. And I would say, you know, healing, laying down and being, I wasn't able to work. It took a long time. I went back to work maybe a few months later, not fully, but tried to go back to work as much as I could at that time. I had people flying in from Thailand and people from Canada to get their eyebrows done by me. So it's like you got to go back to work sometime because these people are making huge sacrifices. Even though, and some of them were just even from within the United States, coming from like Texas and stuff. I was like, I had to go back to work. Um, after 8 months, I just said I'm not working anymore because I had to figure out my bond between my daughter and I. So things like Tia says me from ATL. Yes, Tia, thank you so much. And thank you for being there for me through everything. Love you. If you come back to California, let me know. If I head out to Georgia, which I might, I'll let you know too, because actually I am considering dun, 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 I am considering, I'm putting my license, which, upon the stacks of paper here, if I can find for you guys. Oh, look. Yes. I'm applying for my Texas real estate license. See, look at that. Filling out the form, getting it all done. And I'm thinking about purchasing property in Georgia. So I'll let you know. So my first thing is to get my license in Texas. And then after that, I'm considering Georgia because it's such a great market to get into. And I might have to reach out to you, Tia, too, because I saw a bunch of homes, but I know like the areas I'm looking at that have great pricing is probably not the best place to. But yeah, now I know. Oh my God, I totally forgot that I could ask you. Yeah, so back to Kara was like, I had to take time off, and then she had been in the hospital the whole time, so they, like, took care of her. They trained her to, like, sleep on her own, like, she didn't need to be with us, which is different from Shane. He was totally attached to me, and, originally, when I had Shane, it was one of those things where, I was gonna listen to all the books and the suggestions, like, "Whatever you do, don't bring your baby to your bed," because you can, like, smother him, he can pass away from sudden infant syndrome, like, all this stuff. So I didn't. And then my realtor back then, she said, your son is crying for you because he's all you know. And he's heard your voice for, 9, 10 months. I think you should take your baby to your bed and be with your baby or lay with your baby, like on the sofa and rest. And I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Like, that's so cool. So then that's what happened with Shane and I totally bonded. But with Kara, she was totally independent. We had her in her crib. Um, it was near us. And we had her in her room. And then we got her in a room. But I never really felt the connection. So then I brought Kara to our bed, and that's around 8 months. And it took a while, but we were able to bond. So I know everybody's journey is different, and I'm grateful that I had the chance to be with my son. It's a really sad experience, but I'm going to use it to grow from and know that God has a plan for me. So, and trust Him. And I could definitely use your prayers if you could pray for me. And I'm definitely going to pray for you guys. And I spent like all day yesterday, like praying and just meditating. And then the same thing today. Um, I feel like it's so important, and try to kind of hear what is being spoken to you, but also to put the good vibrations out there for family and friends. So we're about an hour and 10 minutes. So I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I try to keep it to about an hour. Please do me a favor, and share my channel, like, subscribe, comment. You guys are so amazing. I'm going live every Friday at 2 p.m. Originally, it's at 1 p.m., but now I'm at 2 p.m. And if you guys have any questions, any law questions, real estate questions, or just questions in general, feel free to reach out to me. Take care, be safe. We have 722 subs now. Our goal is to get to 1,000. I don't know what we're gonna do, but once we get to 1,000, I'm sure you guys will guide me. So, early people, yes, watching, you get extra raffle tickets because I know Lena had asked about that. I hope to see you guys all the time. And if you ever can't make it at when we're actually live, just be a part of my rewatch crew. Um, but I'm just so thankful that you guys are here and supporting me. You guys take care. Have a wonderful weekend. All right. Bye. Bye, everyone. I see you. Bye, Lee. Bye, Tia. Bye, Lena.